my pleasure this morning to introduce our guest speaker, Stephen Fleming. Now, Stephen has been one of those special people that has grown up in unity. So he has been a part of this since he was born, because I don't know if you remember Sheila Gotro, but this is her son. No pressure on you. And I'm kind of considered his unofficial mentor as he works on his way and his path to grow and to move into spirit at a different level. And he has made a commitment to go into ministry, so I'm so pleased to be able to be a partner in that with him. He is from Unity of Houston, and he has been a prayer minister there since 2012. So thank you for your prayer consciousness. We appreciate that. In about somewhere in 2018, he decided to pick up the Course of Miracles, and he read it all the way through. And if any of you have done that work, you know how much reading that is, in 6 months, several times. And then he began a social media ministry. So he has a bunch of videos up there. If you ever want to go look, you can just go to YouTube and catch Steve there. So let's give him a warm Unity on the Avenue welcome, Steve Fleming.
Good morning. Good morning. You know, I feel better down here. So I am going to move this down here. I feel better being down here with all of my friends here on the avenue. So, how's that? Perfect. All right. Okay. So, my name is Stephen Fleming, and today's talk that I wanted to put together is Taking a Stand. And I really love that song, that rendition, Believe in Yourself, because a lot of that is in my talk as far as reaching into that Christ power that is within us, believing in yourself in spite of what the ego tells you, in spite of what fear tells you, where fear will have you be stuck in life. Fear would have you be immobile and stuck. Has anybody ever felt that way? Has anybody ever been fearful and things like that? Fearful of how someone would respond if we were to express ourselves and things like that? So that's what this talk is going to be about. So let me just, give me a moment. All right. Before I do all that, I have a joke. All right. And so I just found this joke kind of last minute. Well, first off, any social workers in here? You know, just want to make sure, you know. Okay, all right, no social workers, good, so we can talk about them. All right. All right, so how many social workers does it take to change a light bulb? Okay, all right, well, there's a bunch of different answers. So first answer is the light bulb doesn't need changing. It's the system that needs to change. All right, so got another one. How many social workers does it take to change a light bulb? None. Social workers never change anything. That's why I wanted to make sure that there weren't any social workers in here. So we're gonna kind of pick on them a little bit, just a little bit, just have a little fun. It's okay. It's okay. I love social workers in there. They're definitely necessary. So, how many social workers does it change to take a light bulb? None. They set up a team to write a paper on coping with darkness. All right, one more. How many social workers does it take to change a light bulb? 5. 1 to screw it in, 3 to form a support group, and 1 to help with placement. All right, so what does that have to do with my talk? Absolutely nothing, but I thought it was pretty cool. So, happy Cinco de Mayo. Today is Cinco de Mayo. And for many of us, Cinco de Mayo means Coronas and margaritas and tequila and, party, right? So, but Cinco de Mayo has a deeper meaning to people that are from Mexico. Cinco de Mayo stands for when the Mexican government, or on May 5th, 1862, when the Mexican government took a stand against their French oppressors. Their first battle with the French, when the French attempted to invade, was the Battle of Puebla on May 5th, 1862. Under incredible odds, they were able to drive back the French. Mexico had their backs against the wall. They literally had no money. They had just gotten out of a civil war. All right? Around the same time that our Civil War was. And so we could do nothing to help them, even though we had the Monroe Doctrine, which basically said no countries from Europe better not come here. Countries from Europe better not come here and settle anywhere around the Americas. And that was the Monroe Doctrine, but we couldn't do anything about it. So Mexico was basically, they had to basically fend for themselves. The Mexican president basically announced that they just weren't going to be able to pay any debt back for 2 years. It all started over money. And so they wouldn't pay any debt back for 2 years. And so the French government, instead of exercising compassion and understanding, hey, they just went through a civil war, instead of exercising compassion, they sent their navy, dispatched their navy, and set sail for the shores of Mexico. So that's how it all happened. They drove them back, and then later on they were occupied. The French sent a bigger army later on, and they were occupied for a period of 5 years. And so they had to fight to get their freedom. Now that's all in history, but metaphysically, what does all this mean? Metaphysically, Mexico's story is our story. Metaphysically, we all have oppressors in our life. And these oppressors are not governments or anything. These oppressors are our oppressive thoughts. Thoughts of fear, thoughts of shame, thoughts of guilt, thoughts of limitation. These are our oppressors. And if we do not take a stand against these oppressors, which are in our mind, then we will find our propensity for complacency leading us down shadowy paths, forever immobilized, perpetually immobilized, and being stuck in life. So revolt is necessary. A change is necessary. Our freedom is necessary. Our freedom to be able to express what has been given to us to express. Our freedom to be able to express spirit. So, how this, when I was writing this talk, I began to think of a time period early in my life where I went through things. I went back to my high school years. And high school was my first couple of years anyway of high school was very difficult for me, very difficult. Prior to that, I had attended a magnet school. And so the culture was different in magnet schools. Everyone was smart in magnet school. So there was very minimal teasing and bullying and things like that. And so when I went to a public school, it was just like a complete culture shock. Everything was different, and I really struggled. I wasn't happy. I found myself being ridiculed and teased by others for being different or smart. Like I would raise my hand and answer the teacher's questions and hear snickering in the class and teasing and things like that. And so I felt very, very alienated. I felt very alone. I was very unhappy during my first couple of years of high school. And so I began to withdraw emotionally. I began to withdraw. I decided it was better to just be left alone. At least I could be in peace. I stopped participating in class, stopped raising my hand. If the teacher called on me, I would pretend I didn't even know the answer. I wanted to be invisible. I wanted to be, I would feel when I went to school, I would feel knots in my stomach. I wanted other kids to like me. I was very unhappy. So perhaps some of us can identify with the struggles of this unhappy teenager. Perhaps some of us have gone through the very same thing. As a matter of fact, the very same scenario. Maybe some of us can remember our high school days, our high school years. Maybe some of us can equate this particular experience that I'm describing with you with something in your own experience. So, what did I do? I created my own escapes. I would write or read in class. I wouldn't pay any attention. I just emotionally withdrew and just read or draw or wrote and created my own world. My grades began to suffer, but I was okay with that because kids were starting to leave me alone now. I was achieving invisibility. I wasn't being noticed anymore. So I was okay with the poor grades. I was okay with that. So here I was virtually invisible, afraid to shine my light, afraid to stand out and be noticed, afraid to be me, ashamed to be me, ashamed to be what God had created me to be. So this was my oppressor. This was my time of oppression. These were my thoughts. Your mind can do more to oppress you than any physical oppression. Your mind is stronger than any iron bars or any chains or anything. Your mind is powerful. And if you perceive oppression, if you have fear in everything that you do, you will find yourself paralyzed. You will find yourself stuck. You will find yourself not going anywhere. So perhaps some of us, even now, are afraid to be what God created us, are afraid to express ourselves as we were created to express. Perhaps some of you all can recall moments where you felt oppressed, where you felt like you were up against insurmountable odds. Even now, there are many of us more concerned about what other people think of us than what we think of ourselves. So maybe we have a desire to do something, or a desire to achieve something, or a desire to express something, or a desire to create and manifest something. Now those desires, many of these desires are spirit wanting to express itself through us. Spirit wanting to bring something into this world of form. Many of these desires. It's God wanting to express through us, express a greater good, express a greater potential in us. But many of us, because of fear, do nothing. Because of fear, we do nothing. Days, months, sometimes years go by, and we do nothing. So does this resemble freedom? Sounds like a prison to me. So, back to my story as a teenager. So I was depressed, and now I just didn't want to go to school. I just decided, you know something? I'm not going to school anymore. That's it. I can't deal with it now. I had a mother, though, same person that you all are so fond of. She didn't play that. She did not play that. You know, and unless you were sick, you were going to school. That's all there was to it. If you're not sick, you're going to school, period. Well, I didn't want to go to school. So I manifested an illness. I have always had a knack at manifesting things, always, ever since I was little. My mother wrote a little bit about it in her first book entitled Praying Through a Storm, where she described how I manifested a computer when I was 12 years old. She was talking about me. So here we are. I wasn't going to school. I knew in order to accomplish not going to school, I knew what I had to do, which meant I had to be sick. So I manifested sickness. So after going to several doctors and getting a spinal tap, I was diagnosed with viral meningitis. And so I was allowed to stay home for the remainder of the school year. I was stuck in life. I was stuck. So there are times in many of our lives where we find ourselves stuck. Maybe instead of school, you find yourself stuck in an unhappy employment situation. Maybe instead of school, you find yourself stuck in an unhappy relationship, in an unhappy friendship, in an unhappy marriage. Changing your thoughts is the key to changing your life. Changing your thoughts and believing in yourself is the key to changing your life. I found a scripture in Proverbs 4:23. Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. I love the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary because, you know, there was a huge disconnect with me with the Bible until I discovered the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. And I was like, you know, this is cool. You know, so I began to, you know, and right here it says, so what are the issues of life in the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary? They are the outcome of our habitual thoughts. As we control our thought life, we gain control over our destiny. You know, in the world of neuroscience, many neuroscientists estimate that the human brain has up to 1,000 trillion connections. 1,000 trillion. Now, I don't know if everybody knows what a trillion is, but a billion is 1,000 million. And so a trillion is 1,000 billion. And we have up to 1,000 trillion connections in the human brain. Let me read a little bit about this to you. So, functionally related neurons connect to each other to form neural networks. The more signals sent between two neurons, the stronger the connection grows. And so with each new experience and each remembered event or fact, the brain slightly rewires its physical structure. So what does all that scientific mumbo jumbo mean anyway? What does that mean? That means that the more we do something, the more we practice something, the more we exercise something, we become more proficient at it, including loving and fearful thoughts. We are habitual creatures, and the rewiring of the brain makes it so that our habits become easier. So what happens when you actually change your thoughts, you actually change your habits, you actually change things, the old connections that I was just describing, they dissolve and go away. And the brain then creates new neural network connections, new patterns. So if you change your thought patterns to a positive one, then your brain will create new neural networks for positive thinking. And then you will be able to habitually think positively. All you need to do is change. So this is in scripture, this is in science. So, in Lessons in Truth, it reads, if you keep your thoughts turned towards the external of yourself or of others, you will see only the things that are not real, but temporal, and which pass away. All of the faults, failures, or lacks in people or circumstances will seem very real to you, and you will be unhappy and sick. If you turn your thoughts away from the external towards the spiritual and let them dwell on the good in yourself and in others, all of the apparent evil will first drop out of your thoughts and then out of your life. Your thoughts are causality. Your thoughts dictate everything in your world. The world that we perceive is merely a reflection of what is within us. I want you to think about that. The world that we perceive is merely a reflection of what is within us, of where our consciousness is. So if we have love in our consciousness, we will see a loving world. If we have fear in our consciousness, we will see a fearful world. So back to the life of that teenager. So towards the middle of summer vacation, remember I was out of school. So towards the middle of summer vacation, we moved to a new area of town, which meant that I got to go to a new school. So I was happy for that. I was happy about that new beginning. But at the same time, somewhere deep down in that teenager's mind, I thought about it, what if the same thing were to happen again? So maybe there's something different that I need to do inside to change this so that I don't have another repeat of the first 2 years. Didn't know what it was. Hadn't read Course in Miracles yet. But I knew that there was something. And so, about 2 weeks before the new school year was to begin, I talked to God, or my higher self. And I told it that I wanted some new friends. I wanted some friends. Didn't have any friends. I wanted some friends. I told it that I wanted to be popular. Yeah, sure did. Why not? Told him that I wanted to be popular. I was basically thinking about everything. I was thinking about how, I wasn't popular. How I was, like an invisible person. Basically, no one knew me. And so I said, I want to see what it's like on the other side of the spectrum. I want to see what it's like to be popular. Why not? I deserve it. And I told it that, get this, I said that not only do I want to be popular, but I want to sit at the table in lunch where all the popular kids sit. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? The one that has all the athletes and the cheerleaders and stuff. I want that. Why not? I'm worth it, I began to believe in myself. On the first day of school, before I go to the first day of school, I want to read something from Lessons in Truth. Each of us, no matter how insignificant he may be in this world, may receive from God unlimited good of whatever kind he desires and radiate it to all about him. That's in Lessons in Truth. So back to myself as a teenager. On the first day of school, while waiting at the bus stop, I met Cedric at the bus stop. First day of school, I met Cedric. Cedric and I talked to each other while we waited on the bus. Don't know how we got to the subject of birthdays, but turned out Cedric and my birthday were a day apart. I was February 27th, he was February 26th. So, that was, hey, we were already cool in each other's eyes at that point. And so we talked, and just time just flew by. And we just talked all the way to school on the bus, on the school bus. And then later on that morning, Cedric introduced me to his friend Mike. And Mike and I hit it off as well. Now, I didn't know this until a little bit later, a little bit later on that day, before lunch. Turns out Mike played high school football, and Cedric was captain of the high school basketball team. Didn't know this, okay? And so on the very first day of school, I was sitting at the popular table with all of the other athletes and cheerleaders. Everything was surreal. It was like a dream. It was a dream. It was like a dream. It was happening, but it felt like a dream. When I think about the shift that occurred from being, on the one hand, a social leper or something, invisible, being in an invisible box, and on the other hand, now here I was, first day of school, had a fresh new start, new beginning, new friends, and was sitting at the popular table with the other athletes and cheerleaders. So that right there caused an additional, I knew what to do at that point. I didn't know what to do during that summer. I just knew that something needed to change, but I knew what to do then. I said, you know something? No more dumbing down and dimming my light so that other people can feel better about them. From here on out, I refuse to be anything other than me. From here on out, I refuse to determine my worth based on someone else's opinion. So, when I think about it, and I think about how all these things happen, and just 2 weeks ago, I had spoke to God and said the things that I wanted, and how they all came, they started happening. I was like, man, I could have asked for a red carpet and a limo and a driver and everything else. I mean, it'd been great, so, but I didn't think about it, but I was really grateful. So, in Romans 12:2 of the Bible, it reads, "Do not copy the behaviors and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect." On this scripture, the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary reads, "How do we transform the mind and body? By the renewing of the mind. As we lay hold of the Christ, we gain the Christ consciousness, and the Spirit of the Christ begins the work of renewal in us. When transformation takes place in the one whose life is touched by the influence of the Christ, the mind is renewed and so quickened that one can discern the will of God, or what the will of God is, without doubt or uncertainty." Without doubt or uncertainty. So back to my life, back to the life of that teenager who sees his life being rapidly or shifting or taking new directions. There's new opportunity, new growth. There was a newfound confidence in this teenager, in myself. I had gone to school for a year. I was popular. Cedric and Mike were my two best friends, but by now I also had other friends and associates and acquaintances. There were people at school that looked up to me, that admired me. Completely different from just a year ago. In this next year of school, I was entering as an 11th grader, and my best friends and other associates, they were entering as a senior. Remember, I was out for a year because of the viral meningitis. But now things were different now. I decided I wanted to graduate with my friends. That's what I want to do. I'm going to graduate with my friends. I just made it, I didn't doubt myself. I just said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to graduate with my friends, period. So I went to go see my counselor on the first week of school. And sitting in his office, I told him that I was ready to graduate with my friends. I was not going to be left behind by my friends. Nope. No. So my counselor was interested in this because before then there was no one else no one had ever done 2 years in one before. No one. Okay? So we put together a plan. He let me know what classes were being offered at night school, and then so we compared it with what I was taking so far, and so we put together everything that I was going to need in order to graduate. And that's exactly what I did. I went to day school, I went to night school, and I went to Saturday school for 2 semesters, and I graduated and walked across that stage with my friends. What a fitting song, Believe in Yourself. It started with me taking a stand, though. It started with me making a change in consciousness, a shift. I didn't even know what to do during that summer when I was going to the new school. I just knew that something needed to change, and I was willing to make that change. Didn't know what to do, but I was willing to make that change. So when Spirit showed up, and next thing you know, everything that I asked God for was happening, had come to pass, now I knew it was time for me to do my thing. So, in John 10:34, our master teacher Jesus says, is it not written in Scripture, ye are gods, you are gods? And Master Teacher Jesus was referring to Psalms 82:6. I said, ye are gods, and all of you sons of the Most High. About this, the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary reads, what is meant by gods in this verse, ye are gods, and all of you sons of the Most High, men made in the image and likeness of God are gods because they are potentially all that God is. Each and every one of us in this room has the potentiality of all that God is within us. We are capable of all things. We are not small or insignificant. We are magnificent, limitless beings. Eternal love and form. In absolute truth, nothing can oppress a child of God. In absolute truth, nothing can oppress you. For God is love, and love can never be oppressed. In one of my favorite parts of A Course in Miracles, it reads, to choose again. It reads, let us be glad that we can walk the world and find so many chances to perceive another situation where God's gift can once again be recognized as ours. And thus will all the vestiges of hell, the secret sins and hidden hates be gone, and all the loveliness which they concealed appear like lawns of heaven to our sight, to lift us high above the thorny roads we traveled on before Christ appeared. Hear me, my brothers, hear and join with me. God has ordained, I cannot call in vain. And in his certainty, I rest content. For you will hear, and you will choose again. And in this choice is everyone made free. And so, my brothers and sisters, the next time you feel fear, remember that it is just the ego's attempt to keep you from your blessing that is rightfully yours. You are royalty. Nothing can oppress you. Since the beginning of time, there has never been another like you. And when you leave this place, there will never be another like you ever again. So, take a look, have courage and look squarely at what frightens you, whatever it is, and then run towards it with arms open wide. Now watch the clouds of fear vanish as a puff of smoke. What once oppressed is now no more, as you finally behold the beauty, the love that resides. So my brothers and sisters, let us all go and be that light that God intended for us to be. Thank you.